Welcome to Mixing with Mike, presented by MPG Insider, and this is a mixing tip on what do I charge for a mix. This is probably one of the most common questions that I get in terms of people who are part of my school or part of my program that are now going out and charging professionally for the mixing work that they do. So primarily, there is one basic principle that will determine how much you can charge for a mix, and this is experience. Everything extends from experience. The more mixing that you do, the more efficient that you will become with mixing, and the more likely that your mixes will start to sound good. Mixing is one of the most difficult things to do from an engineering perspective because it requires that you really have a good grasp of all the different tools that you're using, and not very many people are very good at it. So, if you do get very good at it, you can actually very quickly get in demand and have a lot of people hiring you. So, here's the guidelines and how you do it. If you've actually spent a lot of time mixing, then what you want to do is you want to start by looking at track count and start there. So anything less than 24 tracks or 24 tracks or less, then you're going to want to charge or figure out how long it takes you to do a mix that's based off of that. So let's just say that it takes you 8 hours to do a good mix on a 24 track or less mix. Um, then you would want to set your next stage, and that would be anything from 24, say, up to about 40 tracks. Now, on this is obviously going to be a more complicated mix. There's probably going to be more instruments, and it's going to be more difficult to fit all of those instruments in, and that's going to take you longer. Now, it's not going to take you twice as long, but let's say maybe it takes you another 50% longer, and that mix now extends out to 12 hours. You get the basic idea here, but this is like a good starting point because what it now tells you, or what you want to figure out from here, is what would be a good hourly rate. If you know it's going to take 8 hours of your time, then what is valuable to you? Let's just say that you want $20 an hour, and based off of 8 hours, and we multiply that out, what we end up with is $160 to do a 24 track mix. Now, when you are working for other people and working professionally, and when I talk about experience, I really mean working for other people because there is a pressure that's involved when you're mixing other people's material because they have an idea of what they want it to sound like. So it's not entirely up to you. If you're mixing your own material, that doesn't really count because you have this idea in your head and good enough is good enough for you. It's easy for you to give up. But when somebody's pushing your buttons and saying, you know what, I don't like that drum sound, I don't like that drum sound, I don't like that drum sound, you have to keep working until you get it right. And that means it's going to take longer. So what I want to do is add in a little bit extra here. And what I'm going to do is add in a couple of extra hours that it may take to kind of tweak in. So that adds another $40. So now we're talking about $200 for that 24 track mix. So of course these numbers are arbitrary. You have to figure out what this value is, what's valuable to you, and it has to be based on your experience. If you have very little experience mixing, you want to be mixing people's work for free. You just want to keep mixing, 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 mixing until you get good and efficient at it. The more you mix, the faster and better you'll get. If you mixed one new song every day and got it as far as you could every day, and you did that for a few months, the quality of your mixing work would grow dramatically, and the efficiency and the amount of time it takes you to do a 24 track mix would grow exponentially, or actually shrink exponentially. You do it in a lot less time. Once you figured out this base rate, then what you want to do is you want to take a look at this and say, all right, when I present this rate to the client, to the potential client, I want to add a little bit extra of a cushion on here. So let's just say that they have a mix that's 24 tracks and we're going to charge or ask them for $250. Now, when you ask them for the $250, what you want to do is you want to say that, okay, this is what I charge for a 24 track mix, and it's this rate is what I charge, and if you can't afford this rate, I can work for less, but it's only based on my availability. In other words, what you're saying is I am the one who is basically in control of this situation of deciding whether I accept your rate. If they come back and they say, oh, gee, well, we can only do 150, and you say, well, gee, I'm not sure I can squeeze that in, because I have other people that are paying me. Now, whether that's true or not almost doesn't matter. The point is that you want to present it in such a way that you will work for less based on your availability, right? So if you say, hey, look, I got some open time, tell you what, I'll do the mix for 150. Then what happens is, okay, maybe you're taking less than what you expected, okay, but it takes a lot of the pressure off, okay, and that's really key. Because if you undersell yourself, so say for example you said, "Oh, I'll do this for 150," and they say, "All right, well we'll give you 100." Most likely what they're going to do is they're going to give you a harder time about your mix, because when you come in with a lower number, they're more likely to think that you don't really know what you're doing, and they're more likely to give you a harder time about the sounds. Whereas if you're squeezing them in, it's almost more like you're doing them a favor. They're more likely to look more approvingly upon the mix work that you've done. Now, of course, you still have to be good. So if you're not a very good mixer, this can very easily work into a disastrous situation. So you could play yourself into a situation where people are, going to give you a hard time anyway because they listen to it and they say, this sounds awful. And you don't want to be in that situation, because every mix that you send out is like a business card, right? If they play it for other people and say, oh, that's awful, who did that? That gives you a bad reputation. So you want to be careful about this. You have to base your rates on the quality of the work that you do and the experience that you have, right? So work very cheap early on or for nothing, build your experience, do tons of work, and then as you start to have people calling you for your work, then you can start to bring in rates and start to charge an hourly rate. Mixing is a skill. It's a very difficult skill to learn and to master. That's why the people who do it at the really high-end level will make $4, 5, $6,000 a mix, and they'll mix 2 songs a day. They're that good at it, and they do it so much that they can just knock them out really fast. And that's a heck of a lot of money. Mix engineers get paid higher than any other engineer, right? That does tracking sessions, even for drums, right? Or any other kind of work, overdub sessions, editing sessions. Those are the sessions that pay the least because they require the less skill, the least amount of skill. Mixing engineers and mastering engineers make the most money because that's the highest skill level position. So it's a difficult thing to learn, but if you keep at it and working hard, then slowly you can start to increase your rates as you get more demand. As a basic guiding principle, the number of people calling you, you should base your rates based on how many people are calling you. The more work that you're getting called for, you raise your rates. What this does is it filters away the people who, one, don't have the money and are usually more problematic, and it gets you into a higher level of clientele so you can start to build from there. When your work is slow, then you want to charge less. Now you're doing favors for people who don't have as much money, and maybe you're helping to develop their career, and then a year down the line, they will be coming back to you with more money, and they like the work that you did. You gave them a deal. Now they're coming back to you, and that's more at your normal rates. And then if that continues to grow, then you keep making more money, and then you grow with those artists as you develop. The key is that you have to keep working. The more you work, the better you get at it, the more efficient you get, the faster you can do mixes, the more money you can make working as a mix engineer. So there is your mixing tip on what do I charge for a mix with Mixing with Mike on mpginsider.com.